Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking a little late about the Su-Min ranking dungeon. So, in essence, this is one of the worst ranking dungeons we ever had because it is horribly luck related and it is also horribly based on your monster box in the sense that if you have the right cards, a crown is going to be quite easy. If you don't have the right cards, a crown is going to be incredibly difficult or challenging, or you just need to get unbelievably good Skyfall luck. So, this video / article will provide a little bit of insight as to the kind of template of teams that you can be using for this dungeon, as well as some strategies to help boost your score to a certain degree, and in all honesty, at least let you try and acquire at least top 20% for the free Su-Min. So, the score breakdown. So, with any ranking dungeon, we have 5,000 points per average combo made across all floors. Each second remaining is 500 points. Hitting 40 million damage is the damage cap and allows you to get 10,000 points. And then every active that you use to kill a floor will result in minus 5,000 points. So due to the fact that this is a 9-floor dungeon, each combo is quite devalued to the point where it's only 555 points. So that's not that great, but there are many ways to overcome this lower value combo, and the idea is that you button some floors, which automatically chops down the amount of floors you have to actually combo. So for example, let's say we button through 4 floors, which is very doable in this dungeon. That 9 becomes 5, and then each combo made is now worth 1,000 points instead of 555. So the more buttons you actually use, the more valuable each individual combo is. And in theory, the more buttons you can put on a team, the easier it is to score higher because you only have to get lucky on, say, a couple of floors instead of several floors. So you can use that with bicolor board changers in conjunction to kind of artificially inflate your combo count. And in all honesty, if you want to crown, you really have to have 10 or more average combos. Like, you don't even have to play fast or be that good. If you get enough Skyfalls going into place, hitting like 12 or 13 average combos, you're going to crown as long as you had a reasonable team composition overall. So, the no leader skill restriction means that players are going to have to basically be relying on their actives and awakenings to actually progress through the dungeon. Now, that can obviously come in the form of buttons, bicolor board changers, killers, 7 combos, so on and so forth. But one kind of common denominator is that we need to have sufficient skill boosts in order to have those active skills up in time. So, in an ideal world, we are able to populate our team with active skills that solve 2 floors worth of problems. So one of the best shining examples of this is alumina, because alumina provides you with 100,000 true damage to all enemies, and that allows you to button through 1 floor, and then you will also have a bicolor board on the subsequent floor basically for you to puzzle through. So basically, alumina solves 2 floors. You get the button to execute 1 and the easy to solve bicolor board afterwards. With that in mind, it's going to be much easier if you're able to stack these kind of multi-purpose active skills. So I've kind of broken down the various cards to own in terms of like level of priority, so to speak. So there are 3 really key cards you need to own for this ranking dungeon. And in theory, because you can pair with a friend, you only need to have 2. If you have all 3, your life is going to be much easier because then you can gain more luxurious cards in addition. But I would make these 3 your topmost priority, and if you have 2, pair with a friend who has the other. So the first one is Brachydios. And Brachydios is incredibly valuable for this ranking dungeon because they have the killers, which means they can hit damage cap on floor 5. They have a huge button to button their way through any floor basically in the dungeon. And then finally, the ability to spawn 2 rows of jammers may seem counterintuitive, but it's vital to the success when used in conjunction with Satan to form easy void damage or VDP boards. So if you don't have Brachydios, pair with a friend. The next core card to own is Revo Satan. So Reincarnated Satan is a farmable monster, so everyone can acquire him. So this is nice. 1 out of the 3 that you need to have, you already can get because it is farmable. Now, the reason why he is invaluable is because not only can he button through a single floor, but after you button and kill a floor, you'll have a board of 30 Dark Orbs. And then that means you have the board of 30 Dark Orbs, you spawn the 2 rows of Brachydios, you have a 12 jammers, and 18 dark orbs. That means you're able to rearrange that into a 7 combo void damage penetration board, which means a 3x3 box, and you have 6 other combos for a total of 7. This is an incredibly key piece to own, but being farmable makes it at least attainable for basically every player. And then lastly, you need to have a dark void damage penetration card. And the void damage penetration awakening is mandatory basically to one-shot the boss because they have 1 million void. So you're either going to chunk it down and be wasting time, or you can penetrate through and kill it in one go. So like I already alluded to before, Satan plus Brachydios gives you that 7 combo VDP board. So now you just need to have a dark card with VDP. So Sheena, Dark Metatron, and base Vero are going to be probably the top 3 options. Sheena has the highest effective damage due to her natural physical killer awakening and the ability to take physical killer latents. Vero is probably second best, I would say, overall, because they can take physical killer latents, and then Dark Metatron will be the third best. But Dark Metatron has the best base active skill, so it's kind of like shuffling and rejuggling your team around accordingly to basically choose the card that is best for your team composition. Now, all these VDP cards can be further bolstered through a physical killer weapon assist, and if you have the physical killer weapon assist, it's going to be easier to essentially punch through the final floor because you have an extra 3 times damage against Xiumin. Now, remember, you want 2 of those 3 cards, ideally 3 of 3. If you have 3 of 3, you want to take an Ilmina friend, because Ilmina is incredibly valuable. Like I mentioned before, she solves floor 1 or 2 of a button, and then you have a bicolor board changer afterwards with no additional secondary animations that waste time. So she's incredibly valuable. She comes with 4 skill boosts, as well as some killers to help you hit damage cap as well. So she's a great all-around card to have. If you have her, it's going to be valuable. But again, if you are missing one of those key core cards, don't take an Ilmina friend, take that core key card. I played without an Ilmina. It was terrible, but it still is more successful than playing without a Brachydios. Now, next thing you need to populate your team with is skill boost cards. So basically, because we are going to be using buttons, we are going to need to have certain basically actives come up in time, and Satan has a 20 turn cooldown. So you need to have at least enough skill boost to have Satan come up in time. So you want to use these high skill boost cards. And fortunately, most of them are farmable. We can use Whaledor, who has 5 skill boosts, but he does not have any skill bind resist awakening, which means you do run the risk of being skill bound on floor 8. So don't use too many Whaledors unless you have inherits accordingly. Just remember, Satan does not have skill bind resist either, so you can be running into issues if you have too many Whaledors. By comparison, Dark and Light Orpharian have 1 less skill boost, so they have 4 with their Super Awakening. They have skill bind resist, they have higher weighted stats, higher attack stat, which means they can possibly button through more floors than Whaledor could, so it gives you other options as well. And then finally, Tengu is another viable option. He does have a sub-attribute, unlike Orpharians, which makes him a little faster overall, but again, not everyone has Orpharians ready to go with the Super Awakenings. Tengu is probably the lowest investment skill boost card you can acquire, and it's an easily farmable card, so everyone should at least have maybe a couple of Tengus lying around. And now we come to buttons. So like I already mentioned, with 9 floors, every floor you button is going to increase your average combo count score accordingly. So if you are able to button through 4 floors, you have 5 floors remaining to combo through. Each combo is worth 1,000 points instead of 555. So you want to use as many buttons as possible. So here is a list of some valuable buttons that I've come up with. There's a couple more like Lubu and Durga, but I feel like these ones are a little better overall. So Grimjaw is able to be a fast button, no additional secondary effect when low HP. Fast, easy, nicely done. Vitra is also another button that's when you're low HP, but they also provide dark damage boost, which can be vital for certain setups that don't have enough damage to kill the final floor. You get this little bit of damage boost towards the end, and bam, you can actually VDP through. Archdemon Lucifer is able to button through floor 4 while also having an incredibly short cooldown. Floor 4 has 2 spawns, and Lucifer can kill both of them. Awoken Archangel Lucifer is different than Archdemon Lucifer. There's a difference here. And they are a floor 7 button for 8 combo VDP. So Brachydios Satan is 7 combos. If you do Satan, Archangel Lucifer, Brachydios, you actually have an 8 combo VDP board that you can cascade. So higher combo count and a higher chance of Skyfalls at the same time. Dark Metatron can button through floor 3, as well as providing you a bicolor board. It's probably one of the best alternatives if you don't own Ilmina. That's just something to keep in mind. And then lastly is Raw, Famial, Lumial. Basically, these are kind of like budget options for buttoning through floors 1 and 2. They have mass attack that can kill all the spawns there, so you're able to just match the 4 elemental board afterwards. It's nowhere near as good as Illumina because 4 elemental board won't help you hit damage cap, much slower to solve, less combos most likely compared to a bicolor, but hey, this is a budget option. And these are now the higher value buttons because these buttons provide you a button to kill floor 3 and a way to give yourself damage boost to hit damage cap against Amon on floor 5. So we have U13, we have Lance, which is a Voltron collab card, and we also have Bahamut, which I can't say his name properly, Bahamut, and they're a Gung-Ho Paling Machine collab card. So basically, if you have any of these 3 cards here, you're able to button through floor 3 and have the damage boost in order to basically one-shot the floor 5 with damage tap. So you basically get an extra button and solve the burst option. Because if you don't have this extra damage boost, you are most likely going to have to either pray to RNGs, it's incredibly hard, which is not a good scenario, or you basically have to use something like a Gemstone Princess in order to hit damage cap. Using the Gemstone does give you more points than using a regular button because you are able to hit the damage cap, which is worth more points by comparison overall. But again, it's going to be slower. You have to combo through more floors, so it's just more awkward overall. So, like I already mentioned, if you have most of these ideal core and desirable cards, you are going to have a much easier time playing through this ranking dungeon. You basically have a huge advantage over a player who is lacking most of these cards. It's kind of like you're running the 100-meter dash and you're starting 30 meters ahead of everyone else. It's kind of not fair. It's kind of the way this ranking dungeon works. And then useful inherits to have are the Sumire Weapon Assist because it does give skill bind resist. So you can throw that on like Illumina, you can throw it on your Satan. It's things that you're actually using their base active skills, not the inherit, to give yourself a little bit of 20% skill bind resist if you're running Whale Door cards. Something nice to have. And then any weapon assist that grants physical killer late awakening is going to help you kill the final floor, as well as giving Brachydios more damage to actually one-shot floor 5, which is where you damage cap. So, as a dungeon overview, every floor but the boss can be buttoned. So it's a matter of using your buttons accordingly and choosing where is the best time for your team, as well as what floor you're most likely to hit damage cap against. So floor 1 and 2 basically have 3 to 5 tiny little spawns. Mass attack damage buttons are great for this. Ilmina, Famial, Lumial, Ra all solve that problem. Floor 3 is Phoenix with 125,000 health. Lots of single target and large buttons can push their way through here, which is nice. Floor 4 has 2 Chimeras, so you need to have mass attack button of some kind, and that's where Archdemon Lucifer comes in handy because he can kill floor 4, and he can technically be used in a 7-button setup as well. But you need to have Typhons from the Gung-Ho Paling Machine as well to hasten him back up after using his inherit of Ilmina on floor 1. Floor 5 is Amon, and he has physical and devil typing, which means physical and devil killer awakenings are able to deal significantly more damage, and that's why Brachydios is able to succeed in this floor. He can use physical or devil killer latents. He has double devil killer by default. You can stick on the weapon for another physical killer. It's the way you can gain damage cap most easily on floor 5. Floor 6 is Red Sonja and 5 combo shield. You might be buttoning your way through anyways. Combo shield should not be an issue. You should be max comboing a board every time anyways. Floor 7 is another buttonable floor, of course, with 365,000 health. Floor 8 has 739,000 health, and that's where Brachydios is used. Brachydios is used all the time on floor 8 because that is a huge button with the beneficial double row form. And then Sumin, which is the boss, has 3.1 million health. Physical typing, you need to VDP through it. So, there are no kind of, perfect teams. There are a lot of different setups you can use based on your individual monster box, but here is a pretty good 6-button team template. This is not something that I can make personally, and you have to obviously modify it accordingly based on your own individual monster box. But the idea is you have the Brachydios, you have the Sheena, which is Dark VDP option. You also have Satan. So you have the 3 core cards, you bring the luxurious Ilmina as well, and then you have 100% skill bind resist when you utilize these weapon assists. You have enough skill boost because of the whale doors. And basically the general idea of this team composition setup is floor 1, you have to combo. You have to combo like a savage. It's horrible, but you have to do it. And you at least it's on floor 1, so you know if you have a bad run, you can just menu quit if you're fishing for a crown. Then floor 2 is Ilmina's button, and then you use U13's button to kill Phoenix, gain the damage boost. Floor 4, use Archdemon's Lucifer's button to one-shot it. You still have Illumina's bicolored board. You did not override the damage burst from U13 with Lucifer, so you are able to basically solve floor 5 with the bicolor while having the damage boost from U13, and you will most likely hit damage cap. Satan is used as a button on floor 6, then Archangel Lucifer on floor 7, and then Brachydios on floor 8, and then you are left with an 8 combo void damage penetration board for the boss, and you solve it and you are done. So you basically only have to really be kind of skillful on one floor. You have a memorized pattern to solve this board here. Bicolors are pretty easy, and really you're just having to combo one floor hard. And if you get Skyfalls there, you're kind of laughing. So this is kind of the example of why the better your team is, the much easier it is. For myself, I don't have Illumina, so I have no Illumina, I have no U13, I have less buttons, and it's just a much slower team overall. So this is my own team composition that I used. It's nowhere near as amazing, but it's still managed to get the job done even without amazing Skyfalls. Like I mentioned, you need to probably have 10 plus combo count average to get a crown. If you're hitting like 12 or 13, you're probably getting an auto crown anyways, which is kind of silly, but that's just the way this ranking dungeon is. But if you are able to move extremely fast and have some Skyfall luck, it is possible. Like 9.8 is close to 10, but I finished with 197 seconds left, so a very quick finish with only 5 buttons, so that is something to also to keep in mind. But for my team, I use Dark Metatron in lieu of Illumina. Dark Metatron allows me to have the VDP as well as the physical killer weapon to basically punch through the final floor. Orpharian is a 4 skill boost card with a carrot, so I have the burst to kill and hit damage cap. Lucifer is kind of what I had before. Satan is what I had before here. And then this Orpharian has the Lucifer here, basically a similar sort of idea. And then a Brachydios friend with that physical weapon killer awakening. So you have to basically mix and match your team composition based on what you have in your monster box. Remember, the more buttons you use, the easier time you'll have. If you have Dark Metatron, that's great. If you have Illumina, that's better. Like, you just have to kind of evaluate what you have at your disposal and basically just pray you get lots of combos and play pretty quickly. So now I already mentioned how we have these VDP boards. So if we use, basically when you are using Satan, Brachydios, and Lucifer in those setups, you will be gaining the exact same starting board every single time, which means you can kind of memorize the pattern and solve it very quickly. So if you are using Satan plus Brachydios, you will start with this kind of board here. You will be able to now form a 7 combo VDP board. You can obviously flip and invert them all around, but that's the general pattern. You don't get any cascades or additional combos, but it's a reasonably easy board to solve, and you can kind of go on your happy little way. If you are able to bring the Archangel Lucifer, you can now create this board here. And this board gives you actually 8 combos with a cascade. And that obviously is much more favorable because A, you have 1 bonus combo, which is probably 1,000 plus points in itself, and you have cascading action, which means you're more likely for a Skyfall to actually occur. So you finish the pattern like this. This orb here can be up like that. This hard orb, basically like these two things can be either both the top, one's at the top, one's kind of in the middle like that. The idea is basically like this dark orb here with this column of jammers will fall down into place. This column of jammers is necessary to be offset so it doesn't actually connect to either jammer here, as well as kind of breaking up the VDP 3x3. So memorize these patterns, figure out how you can solve them into that position, and you're going to be increasing your score count significantly. So since I did upload this late because I've been busy with like health issues and whatnot, like fever and new physio program, I haven't been able to upload stuff that often this week, but I've included the ranking score tracking for the current day, as well as just showing the JP cutoff at the same time. These charts are compiled by Panda, so give him a big thank you if you do encounter them in the wild. But basically, the Japanese crown is 131,152, and then the Schumann and Magic Stone is 95,000. So just kind of use these as a rough template. I don't necessarily foresee North America excelling the crown for Japan because we have We don't have the Japanese exclusive collab card that can be used as a button and burst, so it's a little harder for us to make those sexier team builds. But because we do start much higher on day one, we maybe have a chance to a pass, but it's probably going to be pretty close. Whereas I feel for at least the lower scores, you are going to be able to see hopefully possibly a bit higher overall because, again, we do have that head start. So, in conclusion, I just like this ranking dungeon because it's so heavily reliant on Skyfall luck and having the correct team. Now, I do prefer the fact that fixed teams at least kind of level this playing field to a certain extent, but ranking dungeons are never going to be a happy time to a certain degree because there is always some sort of luck or frustration involved, but at least with this one, if you have the right team, you might be enjoying an easier crown, or if you're like myself, you're going to be suffering many failed runs attempting to get that nice happy Skyfall run in place. So just remember, in essence, more buttons, higher score. So let me know what you've been using for this ranking dungeon in the comments below. Have you found success, and how many buttons and or bi-colors are you actually able to use? Hopefully you'll have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.